Last week we did the 8th verse, where we spoke about the concept of detachment. And if I'm not wrong, we gave you all a question to ponder over. If I'm not wrong, we asked the question, how does one go about measuring one's level of detachment, or for that matter, how does one go about measuring one's level of attachment? Wasn't that the question? Sure, are you able to hear me? How is it for all of you all? The sound is clear? All right. So who would want to take the lead? We did go about defining detachment is nothing but losing your value for the object. Detachment is not measured by possession or dispossession. As you see the quotation on the screen, they are not objecting to having possessions, but what they are objecting to is having possessiveness. So attachment or detachment is nothing but a measurement of your possessiveness you carry to any object or being. You could be attached to anything. You could be attached to your material things, your material possessions. You could be attached to a relationship. It could be a spouse, your parents, your children, your friends. You could be attached to your work. You could be attached to your own past experiences. You could have had certain experiences and you could be terribly attached to them, isn't it? And you can't forget them. At the same time, you could also be very attached to your own opinions, your own ideas, your own thoughts. So attachment spreads like a disease. In fact, it has spread as a disease and it has consumed our lives. We're all victims of this attachment. There's no other way of putting it. There's no other way of understanding it, that we're all victims of attachment. It's just that we do not know that we are suffering. It's a silent killer. If you ask me, the one disease of spirituality is this attachment. And if you are able to live a life opposed to that attachment, is a life of detachment, you're well and truly into the spiritual field, well and truly exhibiting spiritual traits. In short, you are a spiritual person. So, how does one go about? Since you're all spiritual seekers, since if this is what is the real spirit of Vedanta, if spirituality is measured by your quotient of attachment, detachment, how do you go about measuring attachment or detachment? So, Sedraman Garu, nobody is plunging into it. I'll have to push you all into it.
Amount of disturbance it creates to you when a desire is fulfilled or unfulfilled. You have control over senses and detachment. Extent of detachment is directly inversely proportional to, directly proportional to spiritual quotient. The quotient is more.
So you say
quotient is more. The more we have a control over senses, more we are detached.
So the question was, how do you measure your level of attachment or detachment?
Action,
so what is your
results of action?
Direct answer to that? How do you measure?
The disturbance, extent of disturbance is related to the spiritual quotient. It doesn't disturb me at all. The fruits of action. Then my quotient is high.
Okay, I get what you're saying. So if I am not disturbed by the fruits of my action, then you would use that as a measuring tool, whether you're attached to it or not.
See, we are supposed to be in action all the time.
Is what you say?
We are in action, and when we perform action, we should perform without expectations. Okay. And whatever be the results, we have to accept. When we don't accept, our quotient is low. When we accept, our quotient is high.
Okay. So you are approaching this concept with reference to your action. I get what you're saying. You're not wrong at all. Just to take some more comments, Rajima is saying.
Yeah, you develop more
okay, let's finish with
Vasantama.
Yes, please, ma, go ahead.
Sattvic qualities, and you're becoming more steadfast, disciplined. You can measure that you are more detached, more spiritual. You're more inclined. Your mental availability to spirituality is more when you're that way. You can measure when you are more disciplined, more steadfast, one-pointedness. Your sattvic qualities, you are more growing, or rather.
Okay. In fact, detachment is perhaps one of the foremost of sattvic qualities. You can also you can approach it that way. You are talking about steadfastness, single-pointedness, mental availability, etc. But detachment itself is a quality of sattva. So a spiritual man is very detached to everything he does. That is a sattvic quality. So you are not wrong to say that you measure your sattvic quotient by measuring how much detached are you. So it's not wrong at all to say that. You understand, ma? So the question is, how do you measure detachment itself? You are saying when you grow spiritually, sattvic quality
When
surface.
your
I'm saying
anxiety
detachment
is
surfaces.
reduced,
How do you measure the detachment?
when you perform any action,
You measure
you are
by
not disturbed. No delusion. Delusion is less. And all the other qualities are reduced.
Okay.
in other words, you measure by reactions. You measure by your reactions.
Okay. I get what you are saying. Sorry? Yes. You obviously measure by your reactions. Yes, you're right. Okay. So let's listen into others. I will take some comments by others here. Rajima says the intentions and motives behind or the mental attitude. Now, Rajima, could you please clarify what you mean by that?
Hari Om Guruji. When I say the intention or the motive behind your act
Hari Om.
or behind your is more tamasik, it brings out attachment. The more it is sattvic, it will be it will reflect as a detachment. Suppose the intention or the motive behind my doing a certain act or doing something is only for gaining my and not to attach to the higher, then it becomes attachment. If it is focused towards the higher, it would be termed as detachment. Hari Om.
Okay. Jayaraman is saying when losing objects, relationships, possessions doesn't affect you, or to the extent it affects you, it is attachment. Very true. Gayatri Ma says the number of times we think about it. Yeah. So when you are attached, it starts expressing by, you start consumed by it. Mentally, your thoughts go in the direction. As we remember, we said the law of attachment is as you think, so you become. So when you attach to something, it consumes your mental energy. It consumes your mental resources. Yeah. Devirao Garu says, be away from it and see how much it affects you. Yes, that's perhaps the most direct answer. I think we got it. Gayatri also says, if we can stop thinking about the past or future, we are not attached. Yeah, that's also a sign. Harishji says, attachment is measured when the object of desire is absent. How disturbed is one in the absence of the object of desire? Very true. As earlier mentioned, yes, very succinctly put. Amar says the amount of selfishness determines. Now, I would ask the next question. If you say it is the amount of selfishness that determines my degree of attachment or detachment, another question would arise, how would I go about measuring my level of selfishness? So that really doesn't answer the question because I'm asking how do I measure my degree of attachment? In fact, attachment is nothing but selfishness. In other words, okay? Vasanti says the more you're attached, you lose your control over it. Vis-a-vis when you are makes you less detached. Okay. Yeah, Vasantama, you have something to say? Okay. Now, taking into all your input, very rightly so, glad you could think in the direction. Now, if you remember, we maintain this detachment or attachment is mentally losing a value. So first and foremost, we did establish last week that detachment is a mental quality. It is not the physical position, it's not the physical status. So detachment or attachment is not a physical, it's a mental state. It's a mental quality. So if you want to measure your mental level of detachment, there is no way of measuring your mental detachment at the mental level. So the first thing you got to do, which others, some of them have actually captured, is to measure your mental level of detachment, you will have to physically withdraw from that object or that relationship or work or your thoughts or whatever it is. You have to physically separate yourself from that and see how do your thoughts behave. So being in the environment, being in the presence, you will not be able to measure your mental detachment. So to measure your mental detachment, you need to first practice physical withdrawal. Physically separate yourself from it. So if you are in a relationship, keep away from that. Now, for example, Harishji is gone for a couple of months touring the world. Now, no, with not as a tourist, but with some urgent work, important work. Pardon me for that, Harishji. Now, the best way for Harishji to find out whether he is attached to Rajima, whether he is attached to home food, whether he is attached to his friends, whether he is attached to the lifestyle which he is used to, is the fact that since he has distanced himself physically, he would know how his mind is behaving, how his thoughts are. Like Gayatri Maharaj said, where are his thoughts? Is he able to keep his mind where he is, or his thoughts are going away from where he is? Instead of assuming, let's hear from him himself. Rajima, why are you holding your head? Huh? Yeah, Rishi, you have something to say? Or no comments? We can't hear you. Rishi, I'm sorry, we can't hear you. We haven't heard if you said anything. Can you?
I my mic. Guruji, very aptly put.
Yeah, that's what. Yes, now we can hear you.
Question, which is a very base level of attachment, but the point is very well taken. Only when you detach that you realize how attached. Only when you detach do you realize attachment. It's like saying that.
I'm sorry, could you come again on that?
Do not have something that you realize how much you want it. Or in everything, I suppose in life, that is what is true. And it all comes down to whether you can maintain your equanimity and balance in the absence of the object of desire. It comes down to the value, unless, of course, the value is so immense and so of a higher level that it is not a base kind of a thing. Base means that it is not for self-gratification.
What do you mean base?
It may be.
But any attachment, is it not for one's own self? As Amar put it earlier, that it isn't it selfishness? Attachment is nothing but a selfish relationship to the world.
That is like saying that I am attached to the higher, to the Brahman only because of because I need something in return. But I think it sometimes goes beyond that. I'm unable to put it in words.
See, when you talk of attachment to Brahman, it is not wrong being selfish to want realization. So it is quite justifiable if you say, I'm attached to Brahman, I'm attached to God, which is a very small percentage of people though are truly attached to God, because they attach to God because they want that God realization. And when one is attached to the God or higher, what happens is proportionately you're detached to everything else. Because your mental resources, your mental energy thereafter is not available. You're not available for anything else. So you are consumed by what you're attached to. So all what we are encouraged is, in fact, one of the most amazing facts of life is you can never remain without getting attached in life. You can never remain without getting attached. If that is the truth of life, that's the fact of life, what we are told is, Harishi, can you mute your microphone, please? What we are told is, attachment is a fact of life. You have to get attached. If that is the case, what we are told is, you better get attached to something higher. You understand? So when you get attached to the higher, automatically you get detached to the lower. So that concept of detachment comes in only when there is a relative attachment. So when you are attached to the loftier things, the more grand things of life, the lower things really don't consume you. They don't possess you. You're not attached to them. So that's how the law works. Now, how to get detached to that which you're attached to, pick up something higher. So keep raising the bar. Keep raising the bar. Keep getting attached to the higher, higher, higher. And the highest is self-realization. So if anyone amongst us, as I said other day in the Gita class, whether you are attached to that goal vis-a-vis the plural goals. See, the plural goals are worldly thoughts, worldly desires. But if you are attached to that singular goal, which is Brahman realization, then you are liberated from all attachments. Harishji, you will have to mute your microphone, please. We are getting a lot of feedback from you. Have you done so, Harishji? Can you please raise your thumb? Once you have done, okay, great. So you follow what I've said, Harishji? Perfect. So the only way you can find out whether you're attached to it or not, just separate yourself from it physically. So if you're attached to materiality, part with it. And when you part with it, you would know whether you're actually attached to it or not. Attached to your family, separate yourself from the family for a while and see whether you can live away from them without mentally disturbing yourself over it. That's perhaps one of the best way. So the best example the Shastras have given of detachment.
Vanaprastha.
Can you think of a classic example the Shastras have taken of detachment?
It is, see, after grahastha, after family life, withdrawing from the...
Throughout the scriptures they talk of it. What is that? So are you talking about that only one can live a life of detachment after grihastha reaching the state of vanaprastha? You mean to say a person who lives a life of action, a young entrepreneur, a young budding person who is full of energy, you mean to say that
Shastras,
it's not applicable that they can't live a life of detachment?
Is there, so that...
Is that what you're implicating?
After performing all the...
Is it only meant for an exclusive class of people?
Sai time they focus on the higher.
Yes, sir. Aha. No. In fact, sir, I again have to clarify here. You will have to, when does your duties end? It is never going to end. If you go back to the 7th verse, as a child, as a youth, as an old man, you are consumed with all kinds of duties and responsibilities. You mean to say you would only think of spirituality upon retirement from everything else? Is spirituality a post-retirement exercise? It is not at all. You need to think of the Lord at every moment. So detachment is not confined to a certain stage in one's life. Detachment is a state. So when you say vanaprastha, you're referring to a particular stage in one's life. It is not so. Detachment is a state, a mental state. So you could be very detached as a child. In fact, yesterday's class, we were mentioning about Prahalada. What was Prahalada? He was born into a family of Daityas. He is a Rakshasa. And yet, as a young boy, he was completely detached to that life. Wasn't he? He was only interested in Narayana. He was only interested in the self-realization. He was only interested in Narayana, nothing else. What do we talk of that? The Shastras speak about Dhruva. Many stories and parables, many characters. It has nothing to do with age. It has nothing to do with your social status. It has nothing to do with your physically, whether you're married or whether you're single, whether you're grahastha or whether you're brahmachari. No reference. In fact, Ramatirtha, one of the greatest of saints, Ramatirtha says, Vedanta is more applicable to a grihastha than a brahmachari. What does a brahmachari know about challenges of life? Put him through marriage, he will know everything. Correct, Amar? The reality dawns on him the moment you marry him. And if he is able to practice detachment through marriage, he is a true sannyasi. Not someone who has given up everything, put on a robe and he is sitting in an ashram or in the woods somewhere. That is not spirituality. No doubt that is, but that alone is not spirituality. And what is the percentage of people who can renounce everything and sit in an ashram? Not many. So detachment is a quality. Pardon me, I need to keep the phone active because I'm connected through the phone to have a better network. So what I was saying is detachment is a quality everybody should practice, irrespective of where you are, where you're placed. Now, when I talk of detachment, an example, I think Jayaramanma has actually mentioned a little out of context. Okay, so if there is an echo, you will have to mute your microphones. Please do that. I request you all to mute your microphones so that you don't get an echo. It is not from my end, it is at your end. So please do that. Now, the perfect example of detachment is to be like a lotus leaf in water. That's the example. A lotus leaf in water is always in contact with water, and yet it never gets soiled by water. It remains its freshness. It remains its purity. It's never touched by it. So, detachment is being in it and being out of it at the same time. So there's a story of two monks. They were walking towards their monastery from another township. They went out and they were walking towards their monastery. One was a very senior monk, another was a very junior monk. And actually it was heavily pouring while they were walking. They had an umbrella. They had to reach the monastery by the end of the evening. And because of it didn't have any proper pathway, there were puddles and they had to somehow walk their way through. At some stage of their journey, they saw a young lady carrying things in her hand. Maybe she was did some shopping and she was going home and she got stuck on one side of the road and a huge puddle and she was finding difficulty to cross. So as a gesture of concern and trying to help, the elder monk, he went up to that young lady. He picked up the bags and he also lifted her. So he carried her and walked through the puddle and dropped her off on the other side of the road. And both the monks, that lady was very thankful to them, and the monks walked back to the monastery. And later in the evening, the younger monk asked this question, are we not supposed to touch women? I thought there is restriction for us, we're not supposed to touch women. How come you did that? And when the younger monk asked this question, the elder monk smiled at him. And he smiled at him and said, I had left her on the other side of the road, but you seem to be still carrying her. So this is detachment. That younger monk had that thought of the lady held on to his mind. It was a burden to him. But that monk did whatever that is needed. Any one of us would have helped that lady. But his mind was not holding on to it. But this chap held on to it. He learned a great lesson that day. Isn't it so simple and yet so profound? So detachment is not that you should not own anything. I repeat, detachment is not that you should not own anything. Detachment is that nothing should own you. It's not that you don't possess anything. Nothing should possess you. Please bear with me. I'm getting a lot of disturbance from Krishna Swami. I'm trying to disable his microphone. It doesn't seem to be working. Ravindra Garu, are you there? I'm not able to mute Krishna Swami. Can you please attend to that? I don't know why it seems to be producing a lot of disturbance. Thanks, sir. Thank you very much. So again, as I've said, detachment is not that you should not own things, but nothing should own you. So detach yourself from the compulsion of owning things. It's not that you must feel a compulsion to own and enjoy them. So detachment is the freedom from the compulsion of possessing things and enjoying things. The compulsion. You should be happy without it, without the compulsion of wanting it, without the compulsion of enjoying it. That is detachment. Okay? So, very, very valuable idea, very important. Make sure you're very mindful of this at every facet, every stage of your life, because this is perhaps one thing that really makes you or breaks you. Okay? Right, so let's get on. We'll take up verse 9. Satsangatve nissangatvam nissangatve Nirmohatvam. Nirmohatve Nishchalatatvam. Nishchalatatve Jivan Muktihi. Satsangatve Nisangatvam. Nisangatve Nirmohatvam. Nirmohatve Nishchalatatvam. Nishchalatatve Jivan Muktihi. So this verse is the famous ladder of rise, the spiritual ladder for one's own upliftment. Through the company of the good arises non-attachment. From non-attachment arises freedom from delusion. From non-delusion arises absolute steadfastness. And from absolute steadfastness arises liberation in life. So this is the ladder, the ladder of rise. Now verses 6, 7 and 8 spoke about your attachment, your physical, mental and intellectual preoccupations. Now this verse gives us the path, the way to attain truth. Now the first step of your spiritual journey starts with the company you keep. Satsangatve. That really sets the tone for your own betterment. So from satsang arises non-attachment. So what is satsang? Sat, as we know, is something which is good, hitam, something in your interest, in your betterment. Sang is company. So to understand satsang, you must understand the three transactions of life. You can call it the traffic of life. What are the three transactions of life? Please follow the PowerPoint I've presented. Is it visible to you all, or you want to make it a little bigger? Okay. So the three transactions of life are R1, R2, R3. The first transaction of life is receipt of stimuli. So the world enters into you through the organs of perception as stimuli. So when you say stimuli, what sights are you seeing, what sounds are you hearing, what smell, what taste, what touch? So the world enters into you through the organs of perception. Now once the stimuli is right, then what's the reaction that's happening within? The second R. Second R is what is happening with your mind and intellect. And once there is a reaction within your mind and intellect, what are responses you give back to the world through the organs of action? So receipt, reaction, response. The three R's. Now, it is very much possible that the receipt of stimuli is positive and your reaction is positive and your response are positive. That's not really an issue. I remember putting through this, look at the PowerPoint. The row, which if the receipt is negative, your reaction is negative, your response are negative. It's not really an issue. Somebody is very rude to you, somebody is very cynical, somebody hurts you, you hurt him back. no big deal. Stimuli is negative, reaction is negative, response is negative. The same when receipt is positive, your response are positive, reaction positive, response is positive, no big deal. Somebody gives you love, you give back the love to him, no big deal. But when the receipt is positive, there is a possibility that your reaction is negative and your responses are negative. Isn't it possible? Now let me enlarge it for the benefit of some. Jayaraman is saying suspicious mind, doubting mind. There's no reason for you to have any suspicion or doubt, but your mind thinks that way. Now why does your mind think that way? Because your mind is negative in nature. You get that? So when you want, you share something good to someone, but their thinking is negative. So it's because of your thinking is negative, your responses are very negative back into the world. You get it? Now somebody comes with a positive news and shares something pleasant happening to them. For example, you can say somebody got a promotion, or they bought a new home. Something. They want to come and share their joy with you. And when they come and share the good news with you, what would you think? What are you thinking? In fact, I remember, I remember one of my students long ago, she was mentioning that, Guruji, these expats, somebody in Malaysia said this to me, these expats, when they come here to foreign country, you know how smart they are, they do saving, especially Indians, he said. Especially when they come here, they're very smart, they do a lot of juggling with their resources, and I know many people have bought not just 1, 2 homes. And I have been telling someone very close to me, what is this, we are born Malaysians and you're not settled down yet. So the attitude she has to someone who, imagine somebody buys a home, you say, Adakpavi, you have just come, I've seen you past 5 years, you have no existence in this country. You come into the house and you have settled well. You see, so how do you look at it? How do you approach it? So are you happy for them? Are you generous in your thoughts? You think for their well-being. So even the receipt can be positive. You may make it negative within you. So satsang is not just at the organs of perception. Satsang has to go right into the thought processes. What is happening within you? What is the nature of your emotions? What is the nature of your thoughts? So you just don't limit it to the stimuli. No doubt your satsang starts with stimuli, starts with receipt, but it should not end with receipt. It should be extended to the feelings and thoughts that you entertain. So when you do sufficiently this, what happens? From satsang, satsangatve nisangatvam. From satsang arises non-attachment. Now how do you explain that satsang brings about non-attachment, not detachment? How do you explain this?
Developing into the process of non-attachment.
Amar, do you follow the connection? How satsang helps you in developing the spirit of detachment?
See, as you say, Guruji, it's not a matter of time or
No,
day.
that is fair enough. I give you that credit for identifying this. But my question is, how does satsang help in developing non-attachment?
Year after year, slowly improvement. Because see, in earlier cases, like I'm just telling still back, when somebody you were given a very example promotion. Somebody today we had a meeting and some discussion. He got some promotion. He said, yeah, he was very good with the boss. Yeah, that's why he got it immediately. Not even sharing the thing. Happiness. So immediately. So that was eating my mind actually. So that's the thing and all. But slowly, I think it's routine practice, So by the time, we need to think of so many examples how we need to connect and all. I think we need some more time actually, just like that, I feel like it.
Yeah.
When we are in the group satsang like attachment, so our thoughts are good. And when we develop such type of thoughts, then we will slowly develop. See, now we have given an example. Now next time, whenever somebody is saying, then I should be in a connecting position, like what is my mind thinking in this, whether it's positive response or negative response. So basing on that, then slowly I can say, yes, there is an improvement, or else how many class I attend, it won't make any big difference. Just making the things and all. Slowly what you say, Now, frankly speaking, I like the way you teach because, see, this much. See, some people by this time they would have finished 3 verses. Well, this thing. But the thing is, this is the thing which we need to live by values actually. So I really like. The only thing is, next day morning we need to introspect. Whenever something comes, we need to practice. That is the only.
A receipt R1, R2, R3 is again very common in chemical process industry. It is called input,
I appreciate.
process.
I can understand how you're able to connect to the knowledge. That's what it is. If you don't connect with it, it has no meaning.
Process them, and you get the output.
Sedraman Garu, you can please speak, sir. Don't take the trouble of typing. Matlandi.
In the satsang with the guru and with evolved souls brings us non-attack.
Processing in the mind.
Yeah.
Correct.
Satsang
Correct.
with the right
so
kind
the input
of people,
is satsang,
where we talk about the higher.
What is
will wean away from mundane worldly things, and it will bring us non-attachment. We get attached to the higher. Slowly,
that's my question is how does satsang bring about non-attachment is the question.
Happening to us. We look forward to your weekly 2 session. During these 2 sessions, it happens to us.
Yeah. Right. No, I agree with you. I appreciate what you say as well. So what satsang does is, see, if you go back, I said non-attachment is R2. And what is R2? R2 is reaction with your mind and intellect. Okay. So I go back to the PowerPoint and I'm coming back again. So non-attachment is nothing but changing the nature of your mind and intellect. So reaction changes to the world. So what is your reaction to the world? Your reaction to the world is you carry a spirit of detachment. You don't get attached. Because of a matured mind and intellect, you don't get attached. And where does that benefit come from? Where do you get that strength? Strength comes from R1. R1 is satsang, which is receipt of stimuli. So what you got to keep connecting is these two. Take a note of the PowerPoint R1, R2, R3, and then you draw it parallel to what is R1? R1 is satsang, R2 is detachment. So if you are not detached, that means you have not done enough satsang, you're not in the right company. Harishji is saying we are all conditioned by our environment. So satsang leads to a positive response. Satsang is therefore more association to higher results in renouncing the lower. Okay, you are very true, very true. Don't you see this next to Siddharamanji's picture? Don't you see this a PowerPoint? Don't you see anything there? That's the one. That's something that is moving there. Okay. So is it a blank next to Siddharamanji's picture for you? Oh, you can't see anything. Okay. But actually there is a PowerPoint which others actually can view it. I wonder why. That's something new. What is this? Press the circle. What circle, Jairam? Now, when you maintain a fair degree of detachment, then arises a certain amount of freedom from delusion. The freedom from delusion, non-delusion. And delusion is a state when your mind gets completely disturbed. Delusion or delusive state is where mind gets completely clouded with mental disturbance. And when your mind is deluded, your actions are haywire. Your thinking is disturbed. So when your mind is disturbed, your thinking is not clear. If your thinking is not clear, your actions are not perfect. So in order to make your actions perfect, you need to be, thinking must be clear. If you want your thinking to be clear, your mind must be calm, which is a state of non-delusion. And how to reach the state of non-delusion? You must maintain detachment. And how to attain detachment is through satsang. So from satsang comes about non-attachment. From non-attachment comes delusion, non-delusion. Non-delusion is freedom from the agitations which cloud your thinking. I repeat, delusion is nothing but the mental agitations which clouds your intellectual thinking. That's delusion. Mogha, yes, as Shiva says, mogha, delusion, moha. So a delusive state is when your emotions or the mental agitations which clouds your intellectual clarity. So when you can't think clearly, how can your actions be clear? So your actions also are perverted. So if you want your actions to be clear, to be steadfast, go backwards. You need to be free from delusion. Think clearly, rather. Think clearly, you must be freedom from delusion. How to be free from delusion? You must be detached. How to be detached from satsang? So that's the chain connection. And then when there is freedom from delusion, then he says your actions are steadfast. And steadfastness is R3, which is your responses back into the world are very consistent. Now, how can you describe steadfastness? Harishji, can you explain what steadfastness is? You may have to unmute your microphone, sir.
Arya. Steadfastness is continuing with a chosen thought.
Now, steadfastness
of the outcomes.
Yes, yes, sir. Hari Om.
Steadfastness is continuing with a thought or action, irrespective of the consequence or the.
Could you come again on that?
Consequence is a wrong
please?
word. Irrespective of the result of that action. Or no, I think that is also incorrect. It's more to do with the intention behind the action or the thought.
Okay. Now you say
define steadfastness.
I think you're a little digressing from. I thought you firstly defined. How did you firstly define, Harishji?
Not being affected by the result or the reason for that action.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a sustaining or maintaining a course of action, isn't it? But what has that got to do with the intention? After that, you slightly slipped into intention. Now, what has intention got to do with maintaining a course of action towards your destined goal? No, we are not talking about whether the action is towards a higher goal or a lower goal. We are talking about actions being steadfast, which you said maintaining a course of action or thought. In fact, it is nothing but as the comments are coming as the mind must not waver, single pointedness, dhriti or consistency. So whatever you do with a commitment, as almost a determined path. In fact, when one is steadfast, from others' perspective, you become very predictable because they know exactly what you would do because you're so true to your nature. You're so committed. You're so.
I think earlier you also
In fact, what is
said
consistency?
consistency is being true to
Consistency,
your,
is it not repeating the same action that takes you to the goal?
attributes.
Repeating the same action?
Dharma. I think I did get that.
Have I? No, what I would clarify is don't bring in the attitude into the action here. Because attitude only determines whether your action is noble or ignoble. That's about all. Now, is it not possible? Now let me be very, it might confuse some of you all. Is it not possible for a selfish person to be consistent in his work? He's not having any lofty goal or ideal, as you say. A very selfish fellow. He's only working for himself and his family, self-interest. Is it not possible for him to be consistent? Example, Duryodhana. Jayaraman is mentioning correctly. You take a character of Duryodhana, that fellow is so self-centered. Is it not possible? Yes or no? Parishji, still with you. So it really doesn't matter whether you are ignoble, whether you're unrighteous or you're righteous. Now can you all tell me, steadfastness depends on what? What is it that makes your action steadfast? Gayatri Ma says, desire to achieve. I wish it was as easy as that. Automatically steadfastness comes in. Now if you say, if it is the desire to achieve, did we not earlier hear about, as Rajima said, the mind should not waver? The wavering of the, wavering again, is it not the nature of the mind? So the mind certainly desires things, the mind also wavers. So left to itself, there is no guarantee your mind will stick to it. Your mind may also start wandering away. It is gullible. Your mind never sticks to anything. So that is the nature of the mind. It never sticks to anything. So in fact, the consistency or dhriti or steadfastness is actually a quality of your intellect. Now don't confuse yourself in the context of the verse. We took example of Duryodhana. Duryodhana also had a very strong intellect. He was a very aggressive fellow. You can say he also has a certain amount of steadfastness in his pursuit. But you can't put his kind of steadfastness in the ladder here. We're talking about the ladder of rise. Because Duryodhana is portrayed as an unrighteous person. So what is it that is missing in the life of Duryodhana?
Detachment.
Harishji? What do you think that was missing? No doubt he was steadfast. But what do you think was missing in the character of Duryodhana? Or for that matter, any selfish, self-centered person?
He was quite attached.
Detachment.
Selfishness.
Quite attached to power. Yes. What more?
No such
What is the attachment is a product of what? Or detachment is a product of what?
Sakkam.
No, come back to the verse. What is the verse saying? Non-attachment is a product of what? No satsang. Correct. So, what Duryodhana lacked was satsang. No doubt he is very committed, he is very sincere, he is very steadfast, but the direction was wrong. All his actions were directed towards his own welfare, and that is the result of no higher goal, no higher purpose, no grander thought. There is nothing more noble in his mind. So satsang, what it gives you is, it gives you the right direction to begin with. And thereafter, it also instills that spirit of detachment. It liberates you from delusion. And in ultimate sense, steadfastness here, see, in ultimate sense, in the context of the verse, steadfastness also refers to dharana, dhyana. It talks about the open-eyed meditation and meditation. Dharana is an open-eyed meditation. Dhyana is a closed-eyed meditation. Please write down these two terms. Dharana and dhyana. Dhyana, you all are aware that it is meditation, but dharana is that which precedes dhyana. Dharana is where it's an open-eyed meditation. Means you are able to maintain that single-pointed thought on the Brahman, on the goal, on realization, in whatever you are doing. So the thought of self is very strong, very profound in anything that you do. This comes at the last stages of your journey. And when one does enough of that steadfastness, maintains such steadfastness through dharana and dhyana, then you come to a state of liberation. He says, Jivan Mukti, self-realization. Jivan Mukti is indicating that you can attain self-realization when you are still alive. Contrary to the opinion that Videha Mukti, which means you only attain realization upon physical death. So, the verse is upholding the school of thought which says you can attain realization well within your lifespan, when you're still alive. That is what known as Jivan Mukti. I would say we've had a fair enough idea, but there's a lot more one can explore to connect how the three receipts, all the three arts connect to the ladder of rise, and how you can be conscious of creating satsang. There's more to it. Perhaps if opportunity arises, I can revisit this verse again. But again, it's just a school, it's just a thought, give you a direction how you can think. Okay. Harish is asking a question. Did Duryodhana have no satsang despite the presence of Bhishma, Karna and Drona, and you missed Krishna himself? He had the Lord very much with him. In spite of that, he did not keep satsang. So, satsang is not guaranteed. It is not just being amongst, it's not just a physical presence. Therefore, I said, have you all picked up that phrase? I mentioned that. Satsang is just not the physical presence. Satsang is the...
No, some of the attenders who are physically present with evolved jnani, self-realized soul, all the time doing seva to them, but they are not in satsang with them, with the Guru. But they are with him physically all the time. There are proven instances. Not all those who are surrounding him get evolved, although they are physically present all the 24 hours with the jnani.
Correct. Correct. I can think so much aloud what you're saying. I can relate to it very well. Just because you are in the physical presence doesn't mean you have made a satsang for yourself. So, you can also extend this. We go so eagerly to have a glimpse of darshan of the Lord Balaji or any holy place. Now the pujari who is there 24 hours, he is there in the shrine, very close to that sanctum sanctorum. How spiritual is he?
No, he'll just keep like, even Tirupati also is that. He'll ask you something.
What, Amar? Can't hear you. Yeah. Now, Jayaraman is becoming very poetic. All ball pickers don't become Wimbledon winners. Very original, ma. Where do you, all original thought, idella. No. Serving their master is Jivan Mukti. I don't understand what that thought is, Shiva. As Setharamanji was mentioning, there are people who have been in the physical presence of great Mahatmas, and they have certainly not be accountable to that real transformation. So you can't really say so, but it's an opportunity to serve wise people, certainly so. So real satsang is measured with, no doubt it is the physical presence. The question is, have you absorbed that stimuli into the mind and intellect? That is what is the real satsang. Whether has it resulted in the change of your thoughts and emotions is the real acid test. No point in being in the mere environment if you don't absorb it. It's like no point being a butter paper in water. A butter paper can be in water, but butter paper doesn't absorb anything, isn't it? So it's no use. So satsang is like to be in the like a blotting paper. You're able to absorb, and ideally you absorb the best in any situation. So it is not as black and white. There is no environment which is 100% good 100% bad. Now, please mark this. Perhaps I can draw on this concept. Please remind me to bring this idea next week again. There is no 100% good and bad. So satsang is to draw the best in any environment, because the world is good and bad. In the best of situations, you will find something flaw. In the worst of them, you will find there is a beautiful quality or a beautiful takeaway. But the question is, are you able to pick up the good in every situation, in every experience? That is satsang as far as you are concerned. Because you will not find an environment which is 100% positive. Just not to take, yes, Amar. Yeah. Even amongst the people of, you say, branded them as bad. Now, for example, we took example of Duryodhana. And one of the examples of Duryodhana is he had very committed. He was very steadfast. So, there's always something you can learn in the best of them.
In other words, we are always
even in the worst of them you can learn something. So it is that art of picking up.
Everywhere
the art
learn,
of picking up.
If we look at it
the positive in any situation is satsang. Yes sir, Chapandi, Satyaraman garu. Sir, and the best example of that is, what's the best example of that? The best example of that, see, to be able to get help from anyone, anywhere, anytime, you need to be an extraordinary student. And if you want to be a student, the best example of being an ideal student is Ekalavya. Ekalavya learnt from a statue. Now the Guru is talking to you. I don't know how much of it you are learning. So, if you are of a caliber of Ekalavya, you will learn from a dead book. A book is a dead Guru. The book doesn't talk to you. The Guru doesn't speak to you. But you just pick up the Shastras and you can attain salvation. That only talks about the caliber of the student. So, you can be where you are or you can go as high as a Ekalavya. So that is the benchmark you have. You know where you are and you can rise right up to Ekalavya. Means you can find any situation to uplift you. Anything becomes a prop. You use any situation as a prop to help you. As Tata is saying, even if you are amongst gamblers. So what is the good quality in gamblers?
They consistently.
Yes, Satyaraman Chapandi.
They consistently play, irrespective of whether they lose or gain.
Sir, what is that? What is that to learn from the risk, sir? No, I'm saying because there was an example of gamblers. Tata mentioned gamblers. Rajima is saying they're very true to their nature. Correct. Beautiful. They are very steadfast. Whether even if it means they sell their property, sell their jewelry, sell all their assets, they will continue to play. Even if they destroy themselves in the process, they don't mind. They go on playing. So even from a gambler, you have something to learn, isn't it? So satsang is not a wise person saying. Satsang is how wisely you receive whatever that's coming your way. So if you receive it wisely, it becomes a wise counsel for you. But even if your guru were to say something to you, if you're stupid, you will not be able to take that advice. Because you don't have that wise approach to it. Perhaps I will spend a little time when we come back again next week, right? Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.